Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack. I'm your guide and your host, helping you make connections to the wild. Now, before we begin today's video, once again, I'd like to always say to all my supporters and all my viewers, thank you for tuning in each week to my videos. And for those who are joining me for the very first time, welcome. If you haven't done so, though, check out my other videos, which you'll find the links to down below in the description, along with my email address for those who have questions about animals. And be sure to check out my Facebook page every now and then for little bits of information which you might find interesting. For today's video, we are returning to the subcontinent of India to continue our journey with the Royal Bengal Tiger. Oh, and also, be sure to stay tuned near the end of the video for a little special announcement, but more about that later. Let's begin part 2 of the Royal Bengal Tiger. Now, let's start off with some wild things. If you may remember from my first video, I mentioned with the ancestry, people often associate the Smilodon, or the saber-toothed cat, as the tiger's ancestor. They aren't. The biggest giveaway? The skulls. The Smilodon's teeth are more like down to here, while you really can't see the fangs of a tiger, which really, probably better that you don't until maybe the last minute. But we're not talking about that. But let's talk about some other wild things. It turns out, if you were to take a tiger and shave off its fur, you would actually find the skin embedded with stripes. Stripes are found on the skin too. I didn't really think of it like that. In fact, it's also believed that if you were to take a lion and a tiger, and if they were shaved, it would take an expert, a big cat expert, just to be able to determine who is who. That's right. Now, I would like to point out a couple of things. Bengal tigers can often be found also with two other kinds of skins. That is the white tiger, and then this is another rare kind. They're often called the golden kitten or the golden tabby. But now, just so that we can clear up any misconception or misinformation, people think that you can find a white Siberian tiger. That's just not true. So, unfortunately, Disney's remake of 1996's 101 Dalmatians was false. So the tiger that Cruella originally had killed for her skin collection couldn't have been a white Siberian tiger. That's just not really an occurrence. It really only is found in the Bengal tiger. Why? No one really knows. But now, despite their beauty, don't be fooled. Unfortunately, these cats have a pretty harsh life or so. And what I mean is they suffer constantly through chronic illnesses because, unfortunately, with genetic testing, you can find that the majority of white Bengal tigers can be traced back to one tiger named Mohan who had bred with his daughter. Why? No one knows, and really it's a barbaric and it's disgusting. Another little thing I'd like to mention, where another fictional tiger I forgot to mention last week, but there's also a little bit of truth with his association. For those who know Disney's Aladdin, we know that Jasmine has a tiger named Raja. Now, Raja is in fact considered to be a Bengal tiger, and because at one point I used to think he was maybe the extinct Caspian, simply because of the setting area, the Middle East. But Raja, along with thousands of other tigers way back then, were usually kept as pets for royalty, whether it's a lord or if it was like an Arabian or Indian king or even a prince. They were often kept as pets. But ladies and gentlemen, these are wild animals. We need to remember it's never right to keep these creatures as pets because many go through so much suffering. Like the tiger Shere Khan, who lived with a lion named Leo and a black bear named Baloo. Now, I'm not saying about when they were living at Noah's Ark that they were suffering, because they had a much better time after that. I mean in their origins. They were all bought from a drug lord in a very tiny apartment or in a tiny area. It's not suitable. These animals are meant to be outside. They're meant to be prowling. They're not meant to be kept in someone's house. Of course, that's just a splat. That's just a little drip in the splash of problems that these creatures unfortunately face today. Now, the tiger's threat is very intimate. It's a really desperate situation. In fact, over one global century, over 100 years ago, there were thought to have been over 100,000 tigers currently at the time living in the wild. Today, you can find only 5,000 left. So tigers are so endangered that they're considered to be virtually extinct. And here's the reason. If we remember, I said how tigers are big animals and they need a lot of space and a lot of different animals for them to hunt. Now, because people are going into their homes and destroying their habitat to make way for farmland so that they can grow crops as well as to raise their livestock, the tigers have less and less space available, and as a result, less and less animals to eat. And remember how I mentioned only 1 out of every 10 hunts is a tiger fully successful. It's even more hard when they're either sick, injured, or they're just too old to catch the natural prey. So sometimes they will go into the villages or the human settlements and they will steal livestock. They've even been known to kill humans if they get in the way, but you really want to hope that that's the last resort. Unfortunately, just the bottom line is that our habitats are being destroyed, but it gets a lot worse. Poaching is a more widespread and even devastating problem. In fact, here's how it goes. Their skins are sold for floor vanishing. Their bones are often ground up into a kind of folk remedy that many people believe can make good medicine, which can even fetch a really high price on the underground market. And then it gets even worse. And this is going to be gross, but the trading in their parts has been recorded. It's illegal, and yet somewhat it continues unabated. And like I said, the conflict between man and tiger only gets worse as tiger attacks usually always grow the biggest headlines, whether it's out in their natural habitat or if it's even in our own world. Now, it is a pretty sad and desperate situation, but it's not entirely too late. Not just yet. Today, much work is being done to help protect tigers in general. Now, with all tigers all across Asia, in terms of population size, India is said to have the largest remaining tiger population of more than 3,000 individuals amid a growing human population. The majority of the tigers there are suffering from revenge kills for the loss of their livestock. But as mentioned, government and other conservation groups are working hard to ensure that this animal has a future. One way of how we're doing it, the very people that are caught killing tigers, poachers, are now in a sense being converted. So after serving a little bit of time in jail or so, once they're well trained, they can make excellent park rangers. And to me, it only makes sense that they should do that because they know the ways of the wild better than anybody else. And that way they can even, as an ex-criminal, they can think like a poacher. But now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just point something out. I'm not trying to put a lot of blame on the people because these people are only trying to be able to hopefully feed their families and make a living in a really hard world. I mean, as we know, life is hard, but it can be harder if you're in a country that's not in the best situation. So, people are working hard to save the tiger because the tiger for India, it's their national animal. If we don't take action now, we can say goodbye to tigers in the wild because then tigers in zoos or sanctuaries would be the only ones left for our grandchildren to see. Now, not that they don't do good work, but I would be devastated if we lost an apex predator in the wild. I hope to still have a future where tigers are still prowling across India as the apex predator. As always, thank you for tuning into my video. Be sure to join me next week for a special continental reveal as to where we'll be going next. And as always, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Be sure to spread the word to everybody, and be sure to check out my Facebook page every now and then. Until next week, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there in the wild.